The Allman Brothers Band, American rock band brothers Duane Allman, Greg Allman, Dickie Betts, Barry Oakley, Butch Trucks, and J. Johanna E. J. Mo Johansson. They incorporated elements of blues, jazz, and country music, and their live shows featured jam band-style improvisation, and instrumentals. Please excuse any mispronunciations by TTS. The English TTS has trouble with non-English words. But, if you watch Zentreya, you should be fine. The Allman Brothers Band was an American rock band formed in Jacksonville, Florida, in 1969. Its founding members were brothers Duane Allman slide guitar, lead guitar, and Greg Allman vocals, keyboards, as well as Dickie Betts lead guitar, vocals, Barry Oakley bass, Butch Trucks drums, and J. Johanna E. J. Mo Johansson drums. Subsequently based in Macon, Georgia, they incorporated elements of blues, jazz, and country music, and their live shows featured jam band-style improvisation and instrumentals. The band's first two studio albums, The Allman Brothers Band, 1969 and I'd the Wild South, 1970, both released by Capricorn Records, stalled commercially, but their 1971 live album at Fillmore East was a critical and commercial breakthrough. It included extended versions of In Memory of Elizabeth Reed and Whipping Post, showcasing the group's jamming style. Group leader Duane was killed in a motorcycle accident in 1971, however the band continued, releasing Eat a Peach in 1972, a dual studio/live album that cemented the band's popularity and featured Greg's Melissa and Betts's Blue Sky. Following the motorcycling death of Oakley in 1972, the group recruited keyboardist Chuck Leavell and bassist Lamar Williams for 1973's Brothers and Sisters. The album included Betts's hit single Ramblin' Man and instrumental Jessica, both of which went on to become classic rock radio staples and placed the group at the forefront of 1970s rock music. Internal turmoil overtook them soon after as the group dissolved in 1976, reforming briefly in 1978 with additional personnel changes and breaking up again in 1982. The band reformed once more in 1989, releasing a string of new albums and touring heavily. A series of personnel changes in the late 1990s was capped by the departure of Betts. The group found stability during the 2000s with bassist Otale Burbridge and guitarists Warren Haynes and Derek Trucks, the nephew of Butch, and became renowned for their month-long concert residencies at New York City's Beacon Theatre each spring. The band retired in October 2014 after their final show at the Beacon Theatre. Butch Trucks and Greg both died in 2017, and Betts died in 2024, leaving J-Mo as the only surviving original member. The band was awarded 7 gold and 4 platinum albums by the Recording Industry Association of America (RIAA), and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1995. In 2010, Rolling Stone magazine ranked the band 52nd on its list of the 100 greatest artists of all time. History. Roots and formation, 1965 to 1969. Guitarist Duane Allman and his younger brother Greg grew up in Daytona Beach, Florida, after they moved from their native Nashville, Tennessee, in 1959. Duane and Greg became friends with a black youth named Floyd Miles, and the three began to spend their time at local rhythm and blues clubs, where they participated in jam sessions with some of the bands. Miles later remembered, Greg was a long-haired musician, so back then he was a freak. And I'm black. So we both knew what it was like to be discriminated against, which is probably why we got along so well. We had each other and we had the music. The brothers formed and performed in several local rock bands such as the Escorts and the Allman Joys. By 1967, the group was performing in St. Louis, where a Los Angeles-based recording executive discovered them. They consequently moved out west and were renamed the Hourglass, releasing 2 unsuccessful albums for Liberty Records. Duane moved back to pursue a career as a session musician in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, while Greg stayed in Los Angeles bound by contractual obligations with Liberty, who believed he could hold a solo career. The two were apart for the first time for a year, but reconvened in Miami, producing an album-length demo with the 31st of February, a group that included drummer Butch Trucks. At Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals, Duane became the primary session guitarist, recording with artists such as Aretha Franklin and King Curtis. Duane suggested to Wilson Pickett they record a cover of Hey Jude by the Beatles, the single went to number 23 on the national charts. Fame signed Dwayne to a 5-year recording contract, and he put together a group, including drummer Johnny Sandlin and keyboardist Paul Hornsby. Dwayne recruited J. Johanna E. Johansson J-Mo after hearing his drumming on a songwriter demo of Jackie Avery, and the two moved into his home on the Tennessee River. Allman invited bassist Barry Oakley to jam with the new group. The pair had met in a Macon, Georgia club some time earlier, and became quick friends. The group had immediate chemistry, and Dwayne's vision for a different band, one with 2 lead guitarists and 2 drummers, began to come to fruition. Meanwhile, Phil Walden, who managed Otis Redding and several other R&B acts, was looking to expand into rock acts. Fame owner Rick Hall became frustrated with the group's recording methods, and offered the tracks recorded and their contract to Walden and Jerry Wexler of Atlantic Records, who purchased them for $10,000. Walden intended the upcoming group to be the centerpiece of his new Atlantic distributed label, Capricorn. Dwayne and J-Mo moved to Jacksonville, Florida, in early March 1969, as Dwayne had become frustrated with being a robot of those at Fame. He invited anyone who wanted to join to the jam sessions that birthed the Allman Brothers Band. Dickie Betts, leader of Oakley's previous band, The Second Coming, became the group's second lead guitarist, while Butch Trucks, with whom Dwayne and Greg had cut a demo less than a year prior, became the new group's second drummer. The Second Coming's Reese Winans played keyboards, and Dwayne, Oakley, and Betts all shared vocal duties. The unnamed group began to perform free shows in Willow Branch Park in Jacksonville, with an ever-changing, rotating cast of musicians. Dwayne felt strongly his brother should be the vocalist of the new group, which effectively eliminated Winans' position, as Greg also played keyboards. Greg left Los Angeles and entered rehearsal on March 26, 1969, when the group was rehearsing Muddy Waters' Trouble No More. Although Greg was initially intimidated by the musicians, Dwayne pressured his brother into singing his guts out. 4 days later, the group made their debut at the Jacksonville Armory. Although many potential band names were kicked around, including Beelzebub, the 6-piece eventually decided on the Allman Brothers Band. Debut in early years, 1969 to 1970. The group moved to Macon, Georgia, by May 1, 1969, where Walden was establishing Capricorn Records. Their first paid performance was on May 2, at the College Discotheque in Macon, now known as the Library Ballroom. Kim Payne, Mike Callahan, and Joseph Red Dog Campbell became the band's early crew members. Red Dog was a disabled Vietnam veteran who donated his monthly disability checks to the band's cause. In Macon, the group stayed at friend Twiggs Linden's apartment on 309 College Street, which became known American Samoa, the communal home of the band and crew, nicknamed the Hippie Crash Pad. There were 5 or 6 occupied apartments in the building with the Hippie Crash Pad, and you would expect they would call the police on us because we were constantly raising hell at 3 or 4 in the morning, but they all just moved out, said Trucks. Living meagerly, they found a friend in Mama Louise Hudson, cook and proprietor of the H&H Soul Food Restaurant, who ran a tab when they were short of funds. Early on made good with proceeds from Dwayne's recording sessions on the side. The band's image was radical in the just barely integrated Macon. A lot of the white folk around here did not approve of them long-haired boys, or of them always having a black guy with them, said Hudson. The band performed locally, as well as 80 miles north in Atlanta's Piedmont Park, and practiced at the newly minted Capricorn nearly each day. The group forged a strong brotherhood, spending countless hours rehearsing, consuming psychedelic drugs, and hanging out in Rose Hill Cemetery, where they wrote songs. Their first performances outside the South came on May 30 and 31 in Boston, opening for the Velvet Underground. In need of more material, the group remade old blues numbers such as Trouble No More and One Way Out, in addition to improvised jams such as Mountain Jam. Greg, who had struggled to write in the past, became the band's sole songwriter, composing songs such as Whipping Post and Black-Hearted Woman. The band was originally set to record their first album in Miami with producer Tom Dowd, who had worked with Cream and John Coltrane, but Dowd proved to be unavailable. Instead, they headed off for New York City in August 1969 to work with Atlantic House engineer Adrian Barber in his first producer credit. The Allman Brothers Band was recorded and mixed in 2 weeks, and proved a positive experience for the ensemble. New York came to be regarded within the group as their second home. The Allman Brothers Band was released in November 1969 through Atco and Capricorn Records, but received a poor commercial response, selling less than 35,000 copies upon initial release. Executives suggested to Walden that he relocate the band to New York or Los Angeles to acclimate them to the industry. "They wanted us to act like a rock band and we just told them to fuck themselves," remembered Trucks. For their part, the members of the band remained optimistic, electing to stay in the South. "Everyone told us we'd fall by the wayside down there," said Gregg Allman, but the collaboration between the band and Capricorn Records transformed Macon from this sleepy little town into a very hip, wild and crazy place filled with bikers and rockers. The band rented a $165 a month farmhouse on a lake outside of Macon, the busy comings and goings at which reminded them of New York City's Idlewild Airport. Idlewild South was the home of rehearsals and parties, and was where the brotherhood came to pass. According to roadie Kim Payne, there was a pact made out there around a campfire, all for one and one for all. Everybody believed 100%. Much of the material presented on the band's second album, Idlewild South, originated at the cabin. Oakley's wife rented a large Tudor revival home on 2321 Vineville Avenue in Macon, and the band moved into what they dubbed the Big House in March 1970. Live Reputation, at Fillmore East, and Breakthrough, 1970 to 1971. The band played continuously in 1970, performing over 300 dates on the road, traveling in a Ford Econoline van and later, a Winnebago, nicknamed the Windbag. Walden doubted the band's future, worrying whether they would ever catch on, but word of mouth spread due to the band's relentless touring schedule, and crowds got larger. The close proximity of the Winnebago brought about heavy drug use within the group, and all in the group, with the exception of the brothers, were struggling to make a living. In one instance, touring manager Twiggs Linden stabbed and killed a promoter for not paying the band. He later cited temporary insanity. Later that year, Duane accidentally overdosed on opium after a show. The band's sophomore album, Idlewild South, produced by Tom Dowd, was recorded gradually over a period of 5 months in various cities, including New York, Miami, and Macon, and contained 2 of the band's best-known songs, Midnight Rider, later a hit for various artists, including a top 20 solo effort by Greg and In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, which became one of the band's famous concert numbers. Idlewild South was issued by Atco and Capricorn Records in September 1970, less than a year after their debut. The album sold only marginally better than its predecessor, though the band had a growing national reputation, and the album included songs that would become staples of the band's repertoire, and eventually of rock radio. Shortly after completing recording, Dowd put Duane in contact with guitarist Eric Clapton, who invited him to contribute to his new project, Derek and the Dominoes. Allman was a huge fan of Clapton's work with Cream, and Clapton had been blown away by Allman's session work on Wilson Pickett's Hey Jude some years prior. They met after a show one night in Miami and jammed together until the next afternoon, with the 2 guitarists regarding one another as instant soulmates. Clapton invited Duane to join Derek and the Dominoes, and by several accounts he considered it. In the end, he declined the offer and rejoined the Allman Brothers Band, returning after missing a string of several shows. The sessions were collected on Layla and Other Assorted Love Songs, issued that November. Their fortunes began to change over the course of 1971, when the band's average earnings doubled. "We realized that the audience was a big part of what we did, which couldn't be duplicated in a studio. A light bulb finally went off. We needed to make a live album," said Gregg Allman. The resulting live album, At Fillmore East, was recorded over 3 nights, March 11, 12 and 13, 1971, at the Fillmore East in New York, for which the band was paid a nightly $1,250. At Fillmore East was released in July 1971 by Capricorn Records as a double album, people priced for the cost of a single LP. While previous albums by the band had taken months to hit the charts, often near the bottom of the top 200, the record started to climb the charts after a matter of days. At Fillmore East peaked at number 13 on Billboard's Top Pop Albums chart, and was certified gold by the Recording Industry Association of America that October, becoming their commercial and artistic breakthrough. The album is considered among the best live albums of all time, and in 2004 was one of the albums selected for preservation in the Library of Congress, deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the National Recording Registry. Eat a Peach and Duane Allman's and Berry Oakley's deaths, 1971 to 1972. Although at Fillmore East brought the band more success and wealth than ever before, many of the band and its entourage were struggling with heroin addiction. 4 individuals, group leader Duane Allman, bassist Berry Oakley, and roadies Robert Payne and Red Dog Campbell, checked into the Linwood Bryant Hospital for rehabilitation in October 1971. On October 29, 1971, Duane Allman, then 24, was killed in a motorcycle accident one day after returning to Macon. Allman was riding his motorcycle fast at the intersection of Hillcrest Avenue and Bartlett Street as a flatbed truck carrying a lumber crane approached. The truck stopped suddenly in the intersection, forcing Allman to swerve his Harley-Davidson Sportster motorcycle sharply to the left to avoid a collision. As he was doing so, he struck either the back of the truck or the ball on the lumber crane and was thrown from the motorcycle. The motorcycle bounced into the air, landed on Allman and skidded another 90 feet with Allman pinned underneath, crushing his internal organs. Though he was alive when he arrived at the hospital, despite immediate emergency surgery, he died several hours later from massive internal injuries. After Duane's death, the band held a meeting on their future. Clearly all wanted to continue, and after a short period, the band returned to the road. We all had this thing in us and Duane put it there. He was the teacher and he gave something to us, his disciples, that we had to play out, said drummer Butch Trucks 65. The band returned to Miami in December to complete work on their third studio album, Eat a Peach. Completing its recording raised each member's spirits, the music brought life back to us all, and it was simultaneously realized by every one of us. We found strength, vitality, newness, reason, and belonging as we worked on finishing Eat a Peach, said Allman. Those last 3 songs, just kinda floated right on out of us. The music was still good, it was still rich, and it still had that energy, it was still the Allman Brothers Band. Released in February 1972, Eat a Peach was the band's second hit album, shipping gold and peaking at number 4 on Billboard's Top 200 Pop Albums chart. We'd been through hell, but somehow we were rolling bigger than ever, said Greg Allman. The band performed nearly 90 shows in the following year, touring as a 5-piece. The band also purchased 432 acres of land in Juliet, Georgia for $160,000 and nicknamed it The Farm. It soon became a group hangout and fulfilled bassist Oakley's communal dreams. Oakley, however, was visibly suffering from the death of his friend. He drank excessively, heavily consumed drugs, and was losing weight quickly. According to friends and family, he appeared to have lost all hope, his heart, his drive, his ambition, and his direction following Duane's death. Everything Berry had envisioned for everybody, including the crew, the women, and children, was shattered on the day Duane died, and he didn't care after that, said roadie Kim Payne. Oakley repeatedly wished to get high, be high, and stay high, causing quiet concern from all those around him. On November 11, 1972, slightly inebriated and overjoyed at the prospect of leading a jam session later that night, Oakley crashed his motorcycle into the side of a bus, just 3 blocks from where Duane had been killed. He declined hospital treatment and went home, but gradually grew delirious. He was taken to the hospital shortly thereafter and died of cerebral swelling caused by a fractured skull. Oakley was buried directly beside Duane at Rose Hill Cemetery in Macon. Brothers and Sisters, Celebrity and Inner Turmoil, 1973 to 1976. The band unanimously decided to carry on and arranged auditions for new bassists, with a renewed fervor and determination. Several bassists auditioned and the band eventually chose Lamar Williams, an old friend of drummer J. Johanna E. Johansson's from Gulfport, Mississippi, 2 years removed from an army stint in Vietnam. Chuck Leavell was asked to play piano for Allman's solo album, Laid Back 1973, and gradually found himself contributing to the Allman Brothers as well. Dickie Betts became the group's de facto leader during the recording process. It's not like Dickie came in and said, "I'm taking over. I'm the boss. Do this and that." It wasn't overt, it was still supposedly a democracy, but Dickie started doing more and more of the songwriter, said road manager Willie Perkins. The band's fourth studio album, Brothers and Sisters, was released in August 1973 and became their biggest success yet, peaking at number 1 and resulting in the band being considered the most popular band in the country. Ramblin' Man, Betts' country-infused number, received interest from radio stations immediately, and it rose to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. The Allman Brothers Band returned to touring, playing larger venues, receiving more profit and dealing with less friendship, miscommunication, and spiraling drug problems. This culminated in a backstage brawl when the band played with the Grateful Dead at Washington's RFK Stadium in June 1973, which resulted in the firing of 3 of the band's longtime roadies. The band played arenas and stadiums almost solely as their drug use escalated. In 1974, the band was regularly making $100,000 per show, and was renting the Starship, a customized Boeing 720B used by Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones. "When we got that goddamn plane, it was the beginning of the end," said Allman. Both Allman and Betts released top 20 solo albums in 1974, the Greg Allman Tour and Highway Call. In July 1974 the band visited Europe for the first time. They had planned to tour Britain and Europe at the beginning of that year, but the 1973-74 energy crisis forced a last-minute postponement. They headlined 2 big outdoor events. 1. The Summer Concert 74 at the Sport Park, Hilversum, the Netherlands, on July 18, attended by 20,000 spectators, and the second one, at Bucolic Frolic, the first Knebworth Park Festival, on July 20, where they played a well-received 3-hour 2-set performance in front of 70,000 fans, from all over Europe. The sessions that produced 1975's Win, Lose, or Draw, the last album by the original Allman Brothers Band, were disjointed and inconsistent. Greg Allman was largely living in Los Angeles and dating pop star Cher, and was, according to biographer Alan Paul, becoming more famous for being famous than for his music. His vocals were recorded there, as he could not be bothered to return to Macon. Upon its release, it was considered subpar and sold less than its predecessor. The band later remarked that they were embarrassed about the album. From August 1975 to May 1976, the Allman Brothers Band played 41 shows to some of the biggest crowds of their career. Gradually, the members of the band grew apart during these tours, with sound checks and rehearsals becoming a thing of the past. Allman later pointed to a benefit for presidential candidate Jimmy Carter, an avowed fan of the group, as the only real high point in an otherwise rough tour. The shows were considered lackluster and the members were excessive in their drug use. The breaking point came when Greg Allman testified in the trial of security man Scooter Herring. Bandmates considered him a snitch, and he received death threats, leading to law enforcement protection. Herring was convicted on 5 counts of conspiracy to distribute cocaine and received a 75-year prison sentence, which was later reduced prior to a presidential pardon from Carter. For his part, Allman always maintained that Herring had told him to take the deal to turn state's evidence and that Herring would take the fall. Nevertheless, the band refused to communicate with Allman after the incident. As a result, the band finally broke up. Level, Williams, and J-Mo continued playing together in C-Level, Betts formed Great Southern, and Allman founded the Greg Allman Band. The 1976 live album Wipe the Windows, Check the Oil, Dollar Gas was seen as the last gasp of a dying band. This was unfortunate for the now floundering Capricorn Records, as the label was relying on the band staying together to stay financially afloat. First reunion, subsequent breakup, and interim years, 1979 to 1988. In 1978, Allman and Walden first approached Betts with the idea of a reunion. Their first public appearance together came at a Great Southern show in New York's Central Park that summer, when Allman, Trucks, and J-Mo joined the band for a few songs. Williams and Level declined to leave C-Level, so the Allman Brothers Band hired guitarist Dan Toller and bassist David Goldflies from Great Southern. The band reunited with Tom Dowd at Criteria Studios in Miami to cut their reunion album, which was released in February 1979 as Enlightened Rogues, a term Dwayne had used to describe the band. While the band tried to make it happen, they later concluded that the chemistry was not there. The album was a minor commercial success, which was credited to the production work from Dowd. Betts filed a lawsuit against Walden for non-payment of record and publishing royalties, and Betts's lawyer, Steve Masersky, began managing the group. Betts won the lawsuit, and the rest of the band filed suit while Capricorn declared bankruptcy that October. Masersky led the successful effort to sign the band with Arista, which pushed the band to modernize their sound. Arista founder, Clive Davis destroyed any hope that we had that we could make the thing work again, said Trucks later. He wanted us to be a Southern American version of Led Zeppelin and brought in outside producers, and it just kept getting worse. Their first Arista effort, Reach for the Sky, 1980, was produced by Nashville songwriters Mike Lawler and Johnny Cobb. Bonnie Bramlett, who toured with the band near the end of the decade, sang lead on one song. Lawler soon became a part of the band's touring ensemble, incorporating center stage guitar solos that most fans consider the band's nadir. Drugs remained a problem with the band, particularly among Betts and Allman. Although the album was made with the intention of creating a hit single, the genre of Southern rock was waning considerably in the mainstream. The band again grew apart, firing longtime roadie Red Dog and replacing J-Mo with Toller's brother Frankie, who had been a member of Great Southern. The main point of contention was J-Mo's insistence that his wife and manager, Candace Oakley, Barry's sister, handle his business affairs. One of the real blights on the history of the Allman Brothers Band was that J-Mo, this gentleman, was fired from this organization, said Allman later. Not long after, the band changed managers, hiring the promoter John Skur after Masersky eased himself out, reportedly saying, "It's $1 million headache and a $250,000 job." For their second and final album with Arista, Brothers of the Road, 1981, they collaborated with a name producer, John Ryan, of Styx, and the Doobie Brothers, who pushed the band even harder to change their sound. Straight from the Heart was the album's single, which became a minor hit but heralded the group's last appearance on the top 40 charts. The band, considering their post-reunion albums embarrassing, subsequently broke up in 1982 after clashing with Clive Davis, who rejected every producer the band suggested for a possible third album, including Tom Dowd and Johnny Sandlin. "We broke up in '82 because we decided we better just back out or we would ruin what was left of the band's image," said Betts. The band's final performance came on Saturday Night Live in January 1982, where they performed Southbound and Leavin'. The members regrouped occasionally in the intervening years. In 1986, Betts and Allman toured together, with each opening for one another and collaborating for a set. The full Allman Brothers Band, Allman, Betts, Trucks, J-Mo, Level, and Dan Toller, also reunited twice in 1986 for the Volunteers Jam and Crackdown on Crack concerts. Allman's solo career began looking up when he released his first solo album in over a decade in 1987, I'm No Angel. The title track became a surprise hit on radio, peaking at number 49 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the magazine's mainstream rock tracks chart. Second reunion and heavy touring, 1989 to 1996. The Allman Brothers Band celebrated its 20th anniversary in 1989, and the band reunited for a summer tour, with J-Mo once again on drums. In addition, they featured guitarist Warren Haynes and pianist Johnny Neal, both from the Dickie Betts Band, and bassist Alan Woody, who was hired after open auditions held at Trucks' Florida studio. The classic rock radio format had given the band's catalog songs new relevance, as did a multi-CD retrospective box set, Dreams. Epic, who had worked with Allman on his solo career, signed the band. Danny Goldberg became the band's manager. He had previously worked with acts such as Led Zeppelin and Bonnie Raitt. The group were initially reluctant to tour, but found they performed solidly. In addition, former roadies such as Red Dog returned. The band returned to the studio with longtime producer Tom Dowd for 1990's Seven Turns, which was considered a return to form. Good Clean Fun and Seven Turns each became big hits on the mainstream rock tracks chart. The addition of Haynes and Woody had re-energized the ensemble. Neal left the group in 1990, and the band added percussionist Mark Quinones, formerly of Spyro Gyra, the following year. The band performed 87 shows in 1991, and 77 the following year. The band did not renew Goldberg's contract as manager, and as a result, their tour manager, Bert Holman, became the band's full-time manager in 1991 and remained so for the rest of their career. Their next studio effort, Shades of Two Worlds, 1991, produced the crowd favorite Nobody Knows. The band also released a live album, An Evening with the Allman Brothers Band, first set, recorded at their 1992 residency at New York's Beacon Theatre. The band performed 10 consecutive shows there, establishing themselves as a New York rite of spring, according to biographer Alan Paul, which set the stage for their return nearly every year afterward. The band grew contentious over a 1993 tour, in which Betts was arrested when he shoved 2 police officers. Struggling to find a replacement guitarist, they brought in David Grissom, then touring with John Mellencamp, and also Jack Pearson, a Nashville-based friend of Haynes. The original replacement, Zakk Wylde, filled in for a show, but his onstage antics did not fit with the band. Haynes was both opening with his own band and headlining with the Allman Brothers, and began to consider leaving the group, due to their increasing lack of communication. Despite the growing tension, Haynes remained a member and Betts returned. Their third post-reunion record, Where It All Begins, 1994, was recorded entirely live on a film soundstage. The Allman Brothers was a year-by-year thing. There was no indication that it was capable of staying together for years to come. We all looked at it as each tour could be the last one, and there was no reason to think otherwise, said Haynes. The band continued to tour with greater frequency, attracting younger generations with their headlining of the HORDE Festival. The group were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in January 1995. Allman was severely inebriated and could not make it through his acceptance speech. Seeing the ceremony broadcast on television later, Allman was mortified, providing a catalyst for his final, successful attempt to quit alcohol and substance abuse. During the 1996 run at the Beacon, turmoil came to a breaking point between Allman and Betts, nearly causing a cancellation of a show and causing another band breakup. We were upstairs in our dressing rooms. I'm sitting there thinking, this is it. This is how it finally ends, said Trucks. Haynes and Woody left to focus on Government Mule, feeling as though a break was imminent with the Allman Brothers Band. Later years, 1997 to 2014. The group recruited Oteil Burbridge of the Aquarium Rescue Unit to replace Woody on bass, and Jack Pearson on guitar. Concerns arose over the increasing loudness of Allman Brothers shows, which were largely centered on Betts. Pearson, struggling with tinnitus, left as a result following the 1999 Beacon run. Trucks phoned his nephew, Derek Trucks, to join the band for their 30th anniversary tour. Trucks was very young, at age 20, and younger than any of the original members when the band formed. It was an honor to be part of such a great institution from the start, said Derek Trucks. When I first got the gig, I was just trying to maintain the spirit of the whole thing while hopefully bringing some fire to it, hoping to hold up my end while also expressing my own voice. The Beacon run in 2000, captured on Pecan at the Beacon, was ironically considered among the band's worst performances. An HO spring tour led to even more strained relations in the group. It had ceased to be a band, everything had to be based around what Dickie was playing, said Allman. Anger boiled over within the group towards Betts, which led to all original members sending him a letter, informing him of their intentions to tour without him for the summer. All involved contend that the break was temporary, but Betts responded by hiring a lawyer and suing the group, which led to a permanent divorce. I had no idea that I would be snapped out of the picture. I thought it was cruel and impersonal, said Betts. Allman was finally sober and felt that more miserable shows with Betts would be a waste of time. Betts later received a cash settlement, which is subject to a confidentiality agreement. He went on to record new music with a new band. Jimmy Herring joined the band for the summer tour, where the band fought negative press. Fans contended that attending shows by an Allman Brothers band without Betts was pointless. Herring exited shortly after the tour, as he felt guilty that he would replace Betts. That August, former bassist Alan Woody was found dead in a hotel room in New York. Warren Haynes set up a benefit show for his former bandmate, which featured the Allman Brothers band. With Derek Trucks unavailable, he sat in for the set. In 2001, Haynes rejoined the band for their Beacon run, "It was my first time with the band in 4 years and it was very comfortable," he remarked. This incarnation of the Allman Brothers Band was well regarded among fans and the general public, and remained stable and productive. "This band is the greatest one since Duane and Barry, and why shouldn't it be?" said Jamo. The band released their final studio recording, Hidden the Note, 2003, to critical acclaim. The record was the first to feature Derek Trucks and the only Allman Brothers album to not feature Betts. The band continued to tour throughout the 2000s, remaining a top touring act, regularly attracting more than 20,000 fans. The decade closed with a successful run at the Beacon Theatre, in celebration of the band's 40th anniversary. "That 2009 run was the most fun I've ever had in that building," said Allman, and it was universally regarded within the band as a career highlight. The run featured numerous special guests, including Eric Clapton, whom all in the band regarded as the most special guest, due to his association with Duane. Allman had a liver transplant in 2010, and suffered health setbacks for the following 2 years. He went to rehab in 2012 for addiction following his medical treatments. David "Frankie" Toller died at a hospice care in Bradenton, Florida on June 4, 2011, after a long illness following a liver transplant at the age of 59. In 2012, the Allman Brothers started their own music festival, The Peach, which features many associated acts and many genres in addition to 2 Allman Brothers performances. They played a run at the Beacon in 2013 per tradition and after continued to tour. In 2014, Haynes and Derek Trucks announced their intention to depart the group at the end of the year. The group intended their 2014 run of Beacon shows to be their last, but the residency was cut short when Allman developed bronchitis. However, in September 2014, the group played the iconic At Fillmore East album at the Locked Music Festival in Arrington, Virginia. In early 2014, Warren Haynes and Derek Trucks announced that they would be leaving the band at the end of the year and the group decided to retire from touring. Gregg Allman stated, "This is it, this is the end of it. 45 years is enough and I want to do something else anyway." The Allman Brothers Band performed its final show on October 28, 2014, at the Beacon Theatre. The show was the 238th straight sellout for the band at the Beacon. The concert consisted of 3 sets, comprising mostly music from their first 5 records, with no guest musicians sitting in. "We had a band meeting and decided no guest sit-ins. We were going out with just the band," Allman told reporters 160 following the sets, which ran into the early morning hours. The band joined center stage and took a bow, with Allman recalling the group's first rehearsal 45 years prior. "I was called to come and meet these guys in Jacksonville, Florida, on March 26, 1969. Now, we're gonna do the first song we ever played." Following this, the band performed Trouble No More by Muddy Waters. During the night's intermissions, a video screen displayed a message, "The road indeed goes on forever. So stay calm, eat a peach and carry on." Subsequent activities. In January 2017, founding member Butch Trucks died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. That May, founding member Gregg Allman died from complications arising from liver cancer at the age of 69, putting an end to any possibilities of a reunion. In January 2020, the 5 surviving members of the final Allman Brothers lineup, calling themselves the Brothers, announced their intentions to hold a show to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the band on March 10 at Madison Square Garden. The concert lasted over 4 hours, with Duane Trucks taking the place of his uncle on drums, Proto-Allman's member Reese Winans taking the place of Gregg Allman on organ, and Warren Haynes taking on Gregg Allman's vocal parts. In addition, pianist and past member Chuck Leavell joined the band for about half the numbers played. Dickie Betts was invited to participate but his health precluded him from traveling, although he wished the event be successful. Like the final Beacon show, the Brothers' 50 concert was dominated by material from the group's first 5 albums. The show was one of the last large concerts to take place before the 2020 coronavirus pandemic in North America forced the shutdown of such events. Some people accordingly did not go to it, and indeed especially due to the older demographic of the group's fan base, Derek Trucks would subsequently wonder whether it had been wise to move forward with it. Following the death of Dickie Betts on April 18, 2024, drummer J-Mo became the last surviving original member of the Allman Brothers Band. The Allman Brothers Band have generally been considered one of the pioneering bands in Southern rock, although the group distanced itself from the term. Guitarist Dickie Betts was most vocal about this classification, which he considered unfair. "I think it's limiting. I'd rather just be known as a progressive rock band from the South. I'm damned proud of who I am and where I'm from, but I hate the term, Southern rock. I think calling us that pigeonholed us and forced people to expect certain types of music from us that I don't think are fair." Gregg Allman also saw the Southern rock tag as redundant, saying it was like saying rock due to rock and roll being born in the South. The band was certainly at the forefront of the genre's popularity in the early 1970s. The breakthrough of At Fillmore East led their hometown of Macon to become flooded with Southern rock groups. Despite this, the group has continued to remove itself from the term. "The problem I have is a lot of people associate it with rednecks and rebel flags and backward mentality. That has never been representative of the Allman Brothers Band," said guitarist Warren Haynes. The group largely infused hints of the blues, jazz, and country into their music. They all avidly shared their record collections with one another during the early days of the band. For example, Betts was into country music and the guitar work of Chuck Berry, while Trucks was largely into groups such as the Rolling Stones and the Grateful Dead. Duane and Gregg Allman grew infatuated with rhythm and blues in their teens, collecting records by James Brown, B.B. King, Sonny Boy Williamson, and Howlin' Wolf. The brothers were also heavily influenced by guitarist Taj Mahal and his 1968 eponymous debut album. It was this influence that led both to their discovery of their now famous slide guitar style. Drummer J-Mo Johansson largely introduced the group to jazz. While Betts commented that he was interested in artists such as Howard Roberts prior, J-Mo really fired us up on it, introducing his bandmates to Miles Davis and John Coltrane. Duane Allman was also inspired by Howard Roberts, Wes Montgomery, Tal Farlow, and Kenny Burrell. The source of the band's modal jamming in their earliest days was Coltrane's rendition of My Favorite Things and Davis All Blues, which J-Mo occasionally stole from. "I did a lot of copying, but only from the best." This type of jazz-infused jamming is expressed in the instrumental In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, which focuses heavily on improvisation. Whipping Post was notable for its inclusion of blues ballad themes, and became one of the most popular and longest compositions. Later, Betts generally led the band in a more country direction following Duane's passing. Their only hit single Ramblin' Man was considered so unusually country for the group that they were initially reluctant to record it. Duane Allman had the idea of having two lead guitarists, which was inspired by Curtis Mayfield. He wanted the bass, keyboards, and second guitar to form patterns behind the solo rather than just comping, said Allman. Their style and incorporation of guitar harmonies was very influential on later musicians. The pair also had a wide range of complementary techniques, often forming intricate, interlocking patterns with each other and, with the bassist, Barry Oakley, setting the stage for dramatic flights of improvised melodies. Dickie Betts' playing was very melody-based. "My style is just a little too smooth and round to play the blues stuff straight, because I'm such a melody guy that even when I'm playing the blues, I go for melody first," he said. His listening of country and string bluegrass growing up influenced this considerably. "I played mandolin, ukulele, and fiddle before I ever touched a guitar, which may be where a lot of the major keys I play come from." He later characterized their style as question and answer, anticipation, and conclusion, which involved allowing each musician's downbeat to arrive in a different spot, while also keeping consideration of the bass guitar lines. The group also held an improvisational approach to live performances, which connected the band with jam band culture. Jazz and blues musicians have been doing this for decades, but I think they really brought that sense that anyone on stage can inspire anyone else at any given time to rock music, said Haynes. "We sure didn't set out to be a jam band, but those long jams just emanated from within the band, because we didn't want to just play 3 minutes and be over," said Allman. Rolling Stone referred to the group as without question the first great jam band, and they took the jam to heights that it had not previously reached.